Good morning, everybody. It is more Callous Draft League content, and we are here with our second team draft that I'm going to be covering this week. I picked this one, again, because it's the next one that finished. That's it. And to be honest with you, I'm not all that familiar with the majority of the players in this draft. I hadn't even heard of some of them prior to this tournament. The one that I do know the best and that should stand out is Blues Energy, who is the 1C player in this particular draft. And then he happens to be against the team captain on the other side. That is Lou Rinaldi. So these guys on the left, even though they are represented in red here, they're actually the purple team, middle of the pack, coming into this week. And then over here on the right, represented in blue, is our first place orange team. But with the standings, I emphasize that we are 1 week into the tournament, so it doesn't really matter where they are in the standings right now. Obviously want to get off to a good start if you can help it, but very much subject to change. Even though I don't know these players that well, brief introduction. Wraxius Gaming, either or. She is going to be alongside Joe Fish and Blues. And then on the orange team here, DJ ArcticPirate, a large Mongoose, and like I said, team captain Lou Rinaldi. The cool thing is, when I don't know a lot of these players, which is very much the case here, I can make my predictions at the end or as we go, either or, strictly based on the draft, and completely, other than Blues, I guess, completely factor out play skill, because I have no idea. So we could just assume that they're all roughly equal, and I'll let you know what I think of just the draft, assuming everything else is the same. So, as is always the case in the format, Team 1, I mean, either one of these teams could be first on the sheet, but I'm always going to place Team 1 on the left and Team 2 on the right to make life easier. So we always start with 1B. That means that Joe Fish and Blues have a 1-2 pick, but then the orange guys, Pirate, Mongoose, and Lou, are going to have 3 in a row, and then Wraxius will have 2, and we'll work our way back. Let's start with the opening round of 2. So with a wide open field, keeping in mind that Jirachi and Suicune are not allowed as per tournament rules, but there are no bans, so everything else other than Ubers are on the table. They're going to kick things off with Tyranitar and Snorlax. Very different from what we saw in the previous draft. T-Tar obviously crazy powerful. Lax was picked early in the previous draft that we covered, but as you may have seen, I don't want to spoil it too much, but I feel like the guy playing against the Lax took a hell of a lot to neutralize it. And I don't know if Lax is as good in this format as it is in the individual format. It's very easy to counter draft against it. Wouldn't be surprised to see Lou, who's going to be playing against Blues, take things like Celebi, take things like Weezing, take things like Hariyama, and just load up on layer upon layer upon layer of Lax defense and make it not as good as it could be. But time will tell. I mean, you also want that Hariyama, for example, against the T-Tar, and you can't have it all. So we'll see how they choose to place their Mons, but unlike the other format, you jump immediately in this format into counter picking. It's really, really important, and I think we're probably going to see that here. So moving over to the orange team, so I'm just going to do all their picks in sequence so we can save a little bit of time. But this feels like a very standard and reasonable response. It's pretty textbook. So it's going to be Zapdos into the opponent who has yet to pick, which I think is smart because you just take a versatile, splashable, this will be good on any team kind of Mon and just keep yourself open, which makes total sense to me. Also, in taking the Zapdos, you make it so you protect your Metagross a little bit because Meta probably doesn't want to play against that. They put the meta against the Tower, which is a generally meta-favored matchup, and then obviously the Celebi against the Lax, which is a pretty obvious counter in my opinion. So this feels like a textbook, so far we understand the format, kind of response. Now Wraxius is going to get the wheel here. She's going to get a double pick, and obviously with only 5 things taken, there is a hell of a lot of power. She could Skarm Bliss here. She could take any combo of Salamence, Gengar, Starmie, Aerodactyl. Raikou is still in play. If you think that Mon is nuts, you've got your choice of Bulky Waters and Swampert and Milotic. Tons of options here. Right now, the only thing she knows is that she's playing against a Zapdos. I don't know if that overly factors in here, but perhaps it does. The double pick that she's going to opt for is Aerodactyl and Salamence. And that Aerodactyl could have been picked with the Zapdos in mind. Salamence a little more sketchy against Zapdos. Obviously, two-wave HP Ice, things that you don't want to deal with, but it works the other way too. Obviously, if you DD up, +1 Rock Slide, a real potential threat to Zapdos that very well may put some amount of physical investment to deal with the Ments. We'll see as it plays out. The arrow I like into the Zapdos. Salamence, maybe. There's very much that anything you don't take gets passed back element, so there's that. I could see going a number of different ways. I could see taking like Arrow Blissey, for example, which I think maybe I favor that, Arrow Bliss, over Arrow Salamence, but I don't think you can go too far wrong, and I'm fine with this opening. It takes you generally down a pretty aggressive path, whereas maybe like Arrow Bliss is a little more balanced and leaves you a little more open, but maybe she wants to go down the aggressive path. Maybe that's where she's most comfortable, so that's where we're going to go for now. So as you see, we've been working our way to the right, starting with Joe, here, 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 so on and so forth. So now in order to finish out the round, we're going to work our way back to the left. See? So it's going to be the triple pick again for Lou, Mongoose, and Pirate. And with that information, this is what they decide to do. Just fill these in real quick. Like I said, I think it's helpful to do all the picks at once to provide a little bit of context. Okay, so they're going to put the Skarm against the Lax, which, again, makes sense. This is already starting to demonstrate why I'm not super high on Lax in this format. I think Celebi Skarm already have made Lax's life difficult, and that's before he adds Fighters or Wheezing or what have you. Blissey in this matchup is interesting. Like I said, I kind of like the Blissey from Wraxius' seat over the Salamence. I don't know how I feel about Blissey and Datar. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. It's probably going to be Bold Bliss. Now, having Bliss and Datar does make it so if Tar goes any kind of just special variant, Pursuit Tar or whatever, that Bliss will wall it. Obviously, against physical Tar, you're not that great. Maybe the general idea here is to cover both. So Meta's just going to go whatever, bulky, physical, protect, and deal with that kind of Tar. And then Blissey's just going to be Blissey and deal with the special Tar. I don't know. Meta and Bliss don't have like bad synergy, but I don't know if they have incredible synergy either. So that pick is a little bit peculiar to me, but there's also of the matchups we have here, one of them's got to take Bliss because we don't want to send it back. That's fair. I wouldn't take the Bliss into the Lax, so you don't take it in that matchup. And I guess it isn't that great in the A seat either against what could be double Physical Mon and Aerodactyl and Salamence. So maybe it's not incredible there either. So if it's just we've got to take Bliss somewhere, you're the best option of our three. Okay, yeah, I can accept that. So if that's the logic on taking the Bliss, that's fine. The Swampert here into the Aerodactyl Salamence, obviously good against Arrow, basically always. You can even cheese-proof yourself by taking, like, Refresh Swampert or whatever, just in case you're worried about, like, Toxic Arrow or something that she's unlikely to bring. The Swampert doesn't necessarily check the Ments. It can end up being mixed Ments, as is often the case, but the logic is quite sound on Swampert into Aerodactyl and Salamence. Hard to disagree with that pick. So we move back to these guys in Blues and Joe Fish. And a little bit of spice here. This is not necessarily what I was expecting in either case. I don't think I necessarily love these picks, but going to go with Raikou and Regice, which let's just go over these one at a time. I don't dislike the Raikou. Obviously, it's a threat to Skarm, and it can be built, whether it's Crunch or HP Ice or whatever, to be good against the Celebi also. My issue with it more is that to me, when I see Celebi and Skarm, I'm like, well, aren't they both weak to fire? Don't you just take, Moltres here or Charizard here or something? That would be my thought process. Instead of Raikou, I probably would have taken Moltres, I think, in this position. So it isn't necessarily that I think Raikou is a bad pick. It's more that I don't know that it was the best pick. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's normally a list of, half a dozen or more things, honestly, where you go, yeah, that would be fine, that would be good-ish, that would be pretty good. But there's only one thing, and who knows what the hell that is, that's optimal, quote, quote. Raikou, I think, is fine, is good. I don't know if it's optimal. For me, that pick would have been Moltres or Zard. I probably lean Moltres. The Regice pick I just flat out don't like, and it might be wanting to get a special wall everywhere. You've got the Lux, you've got the Regice. Wraxius is either going to go really aggro and just say fuck it on the special wall, or perhaps she will pick one up later, make a makeshift Umbreon or something work. But the real reason that I don't like the Regice is that, first of all, it doesn't really do anything offensively into Metagross or Blissey. It's going to be very ineffective against both. But also, Metagross generally is a pretty good counter against Regice. That's a very Metagross-favored matchup. I think picking Regice into Metagross is something that you want to avoid. I think it's usually the other way around. You would want to pick Metagross into Regice. Furthermore, that's going to be a second Steel weakness, which obviously there's still time to address. There should be a bulky water or something picked up somewhere, but I'm kind of surprised that Joe here didn't opt for Milotic, Gengar, something closer to that effect. Hell, against Meta Bliss, maybe even Dugtrio, but Regice into Metagross is not a pick that, I mean, Metagross Blissey even, but just into Metagross, not a pick that excites me, not a pick that I would make, but there are considerations in this format always other than just your own draft. It really might be as simple as thinking ahead, what does the team need? Let's distribute our picks accordingly. Who knows? Okay, so do you remember how we started with Joe Fish in the opening round and then worked our way to the right? So the way that this format works is we now jump over to the other B player, a large Mongoose, right? And then we work our way to the left. And then we snake back. It really is that easy. You guys will get the hang of it if you haven't already. It sounds more complicated than it is. I'm just not good at explaining things. I wish, if you guys ever seen the YouTube channel Be Amazed, that guy has awesome animations that accompany his work. I wish I could do something like that. I wish I had the skills to make a little goofy animation to kind of visually show what I'm trying to show, because that would probably make it easier to understand. But hopefully, you smart viewers out there, you obviously have good taste if you watch the CALLOUS Narrates YouTube channel. Hopefully you guys are understanding the way the format works. Either way, so the next pick is a large Mongoose and DJ ArcticPirate as we work our way left. And then it'll be a triple pick for Wraxius Joe and Blues. So starting with a large Mongoose and DJ ArcticPirate, they're going to, in one swoop, go with a couple of waters here. They're going to take Milotic and Starmie, respectively. So let's take a peek. So the Milotic is fine, is good-ish against the Tar, even if not incredible. It's not so good against Regice. I'm not clear where we're going with here. Some kind of balance, some kind of sturdy mid-rangey team, I guess. Might be most comfortable with sturdy stuff. The team, I mean, Metagross Blissey Milotic is a good start. They're just good Pokemon, and they're sturdy Pokemon. You're not going to go too far wrong. My reservation is that I just don't know if it's that good against what's on the other side, which is the only thing that matters in this format. I don't dislike these Pokemon, or really just the whole team of three. They work fine together. It's more, like I said, I don't know, are you really that good against T-Tar? I don't know. Milo's weird, but I thought the Regice pick was weird too, so I'm very unsure about this B matchup right now, and I guess it's just too early to say. If it's as simple as just wanting to cut off the good bulky waters because you think they're going to get grabbed if you pass them back, that's fine. Though I wonder if these could have swapped positions. I think I would rather have the Milo in the A matchup against the Salamence and the Aerodactyl and the Starmie on the other side, but it's also possible that they don't want the Swampert and the Milo on the same team, which is also fair, divide and conquer, so I think that's very valid as well. I like Starmie into Aero Salamence fine. One thing that we had discussed previously is that Salamence might go mixed, as it often does, but if you build bulky Starmie with T-Wave and Recover, then that'll handle mixed Ments very, very well. And then you're okay against Aero. It's very circumstantial. You obviously don't want to come into almost any of its attacks. but if you happen to get in at the same time, you can tank basically anything, and then you can threaten it with either T-Wave or KO or whatever. I think it's a good pick into the matchup. Starmie into Arrow and Salamence makes plenty of sense to me. So now the triple pick for Wraxius, Joe, and Blues. Here is what they decided to do. Moltres, Fori, and Jolteon, respectively. Okay. The Moltres is what I thought he should have taken before, so better late than never. Moltres into Celebi and Skarm. Made sense then, makes sense now as far as I'm concerned. So, yep, no problem with that pick. Fori for Joe Fish in this matchup. Okay. Regice, I think, is probably a little awkward on a Fori team, and you're also picking up a second fire weakness, but currently a large Mongoose who now might be pretty excited for like a Charizard or a Blaziken that threatens all three of these. Doesn't currently have the answers for what's on the other side, but I guess Joe looks at a passive team on the other side for the most part. Certainly Blissey and Milotic, obviously not meta, but for the most part, not the world's most offensive team on the other side, and decides to slow down the pace and play a more stally game and go with Fori. Okay, I don't object to that. That's one way to go. I don't know if it's like a right or a wrong thing. It's just it's one path, and it's very different from the other path of, you know, he goes boom spam with a DD tower in the back. You can take it a couple different ways, but he's going to go the slower, grindier route, and I'm okay with it. The Jolteon pick now, clearly going to go a very offensive route for Wraxius, as if that weren't already apparent with her double pick to open things. But now taking the Jolteon into the Starmie, good pick. Jolteon reasonable into Zapdos, obviously doesn't want to get T-Wave, but otherwise reasonable. Fits the team, very fast, very aggressive, and then it's okay against Swampert, HP Grass, Toxic, what have you. This pick is sensible to me. I think she's building a cohesive team that makes sense. So no objections to the Jolteon pick. Seems like a reasonably good round for Team Purple here on the left. So now Captain Orange with the wheel pick. That's Lou Rinaldi, so we're clear. Got the double option right here. And going to opt for, very interesting, going to take Dragonite and Harry Mama. So, looking at this matchup, yeah, hey, it makes sense to me. The Hariyama here, if it were to have thick fat, can wall the shit out of the Moltres. If you're worried about getting Will-O-Wisp, you can also go with Guts. Either way, it can have Rock Slide, so either way, the Hariyama is probably some level of good against the Moltres, which is a Pokemon that you definitely need to address, given what's already been taken. Hariyama into Lax, totally fine, obviously. Is there an argument to be made that you should try to give this to your B player to have it against T-Tar and Regice? Yes, but at the same time, are there other fighter options that could also be picked up by the B player into T-Tar and Regice? Also, yes. As far as the Dragonite, interesting. Maybe. I'm not sure. It's a diverse threat. I mean, again, you could just customize it to do anything. So here I go. I'll make up a set. It has Focus Punch, Earthquake, and Thunderbolt. There you go. Hits all of these. And you could just create bullshit Frankenstein sets like that hit all the core things on the other side. I really like Dragonite in this format. Very malleable. And yeah, maybe it will be an asset here against these dudes, but hard to predict what it'll be. It totally depends on what gets taken later, but whether he needs a Beller or a T-Waver or just a straight up Dragon Dancer even, you can do that. Dragon Dance is good. Get ahead of Raikou speed-wise, kill it with EQ, awesome. Maybe you've got HP Rock or something. Obviously, we'd one-hit KO the Moltres. The world is your oyster, Dragonite. So after that wheel pick, it swings back, because remember, we were working our way left, so we are now working our way right. So it is, again, a triple pick for Wraxius, Joe, and Blues. And with that information, they will do as follows. Glalie, Gengar, and Jinx. Ooh, boy. Ooh, baby. Some spice, baby. Okay, so starting with the Glalie pick. Look, clearly a very offensive squad here for Wraxius. She really has not even tried to bluff or even tried to pretend that it's anything else. She's just been balls to the walls aggro the whole time, and Glalie just furthers that. We've got a very aggressive spike, speed, pressure kind of team. Glalie fits the mold. It's pretty safe against Starmie. It's pretty safe against Zapdos. It's pretty safe against Swampert that doesn't have Focus Punch. So Glalie not only makes sense in the matchup, but it, again, is very cohesive. Wraxius' team, just as a whole, though she does pick up a third rock weakness, which is noteworthy, though currently ArcticPirate here cannot capitalize on that. Perhaps that'll change later. But other than the clear rock weaknesses that she's dealing with, she otherwise has a very cohesive, aggressive team with a plan that so far I like, as long as the rock weakness at some point gets addressed, assuming that DJ ArcticPirate attempts to exploit that in some way, which he obviously should. Okay, Gengar in the middle, again, I don't know, like, fine against meta, fine against Milotic. Not necessarily a world beater against meta. I mean, the second I see the Fortress, I wonder if the Metagross is just going to be mixed anyway because of HP Fire. So, like, looking at the entire team for Joe Fish, the Metagross that's already there, what if it's just Meteor Mash, Psychic, HP Fire, boom? Taking the boom out of it for a second, doesn't Mash, Psychic, HP Fire, doesn't it cover all of this? Doesn't it still just wreck Joe Fish as it stands? He's building a good team, Joe Fish is. I just don't know that he's building a good team into his opponent. That's my issue. The Regice pick was weird to me at the time. It's still weird to me now. Gengar is obviously a good Pokemon, but you're picking Gengar into Blissey and probably into what I think is going to be a mixed Metagross. So I'm not sold. It looks good on paper, but I'm really leaning more and more as the draft progresses towards a large Mongoose's end of the B matchup. So Blues here from the C seat with Jinx. That's pretty spicy, but it does make a lot of sense. I mean, you're looking at Celebi, Dragonite, double Ice Weak on the other side. Skarmory not really a threat to Jinx. And then the Hariyama, oh no, thick fat, shut off the ice. Remember, Jinx has Stab Psychic. So just like CM, Ice Beam, Psychic, Lovely Kiss, for example, right now, is a big, big threat to Lou's squad, and I think there's a pretty clear Blues is the aggro, Lou is the, I mean, not stall, but more on the defensive end, more on the reactive end in this particular matchup. And it's too early to say. This is probably one of the closer ones. I think I'm leaning slightly in the direction of Blues because I think generally threats are better than answers, and I think things like Jinx and Moltres can really get out of hand. But there's still time to address these things. But I like the Jinx pick. I think it's earlier than most people would take Jinx in this format, and I think that it makes a lot of sense given what's on the other side. So I think that's a really heads-up, in-the-moment pick that may end up paying dividends for Blues. And then finally, wrapping up this round, it's going to be the double pick of Flygon and Blaziken, respectively. So the Flygon into Wraxius, you sure as hell could use that second Rock Resist, and in this case you're picking up a Rock Resist that probably is going to carry Rock Slide, which is going to be awkward for the triple Rock weakness. Furthermore, by taking both Swampert and Flygon together or similar combinations, you make the Electric on the other side a lot worse because Jolteon obviously cannot have both HP Grass and HP Ice, so pick your poison. You're only going to be able to hit one or the other. The Flygon pick makes sense to me. And then the Blaziken is spicy. It's the exact kind of pick that we talked about. That's going to nail all of the T-Tower, the Regice, the Fortress. I mean, the fighting part doesn't hit Gengar, but does Gengar really want to come into a Fire Blast or a Flamethrower or what have you? I already, before this pick, liked Mongoose's end of this matchup, and I like it even more now. And I think that Joe Fish is going to have to make a couple dramatic changes here, a couple big switcheroonies here in the later stages in order to dig back in. Because as it stands, I strongly feel that Mongoose has the winning matchup right now. Okay, so reverting back to where we started. So moving it back to Joe Fish now and working to the right, just as we did in the previous round. So Not the previous round, the first round. Not trying to confuse you guys. So they have the double pick as we work our way right, and they're going to go for Dugtrio and Claydol. Yeah, the Dugtrio, yeah, that might be a lifesaver. That might help. Any combo of the Regice, the Fori, the Gengar, some or all of those may have Boom, which obviously has wonderful synergy with Dugtrio, and the help against the Meta, the Blissey, the Blaziken were all quite needed given the matchup. So I think the Dugtrio, as much as I like to hate on that Pokemon, as much as I'm not a Dugtrio guy, this is when you pick Dugtrio. This is the kind of matchup where it's a good pick. I think people pick it all the time when it isn't that good. This is the kind of matchup where you definitely should be picking Dugtrio and where it will be good. And unless something were to change dramatically on a large Mongoose's end, surely the Dugtrio will end up making the team and will probably be pretty impactful, really change the dynamic for Mongoose and make it much harder for him to try to free switch, and he has to play every turn around getting boomed on with the Dugtrio follow-up. Dugtrio is a great pick in this situation. Claydol here, I don't think there's any particularly special reason. I think it's just what he views as the best spinner available. It's going to be able to hold off the Skarm for a long time, especially if it opts for a refresh build. It can also boom unlike a lot of other spinners. So if it's going to be a more aggressive team for Blues, which I think it is, then Boom might be where you want to be. And then it happens to resist fighting and have Stab Psychic for purposes of dealing with the Hariyama. So Claydol, very sensible. I think these are two totally make sense to me. No objections picks as far as I am concerned. Now, the triple pick for the orange team, Pirate, Mongoose, and Lou. They are going to do as follows here. They're going to go Registeel, Gyarados, and Dusclops in that order. So addressing those one at a time. Registeel for Pirate, that's into Wraxius. Yeah, this wall is getting thicker and thicker between the Swampert, the Flygon, what I assume is going to be a bulky Starmie with T-Wave, and now probably a second T-Wave user in Registeel. Certainly one of the best ways to combat just turbo aggro, which is very much how I would describe Wraxius' team at this moment, is just fat and T-Wave. You want to slow them the F down with the T-Wave, and then just have the bulk to be able to withstand the assault. And I think ArcticPirate seems to really understand the matchup and his role in the matchup, and is drafting accordingly. And I think that the Registeel makes plenty of sense. It's a good pick into the Aerodactyl. It's generally safe against aggro. T-Wave is going to be a bitch. You can't go too far wrong. That pick makes a lot of sense to me. Gyarados for a large Mongoose. So first of all, you certainly don't want to exasperate the Dugtrio weakness that you already have. So picking something that is not eaten by Dugtrio is a wonderful starting point with the Gyarados. As far as how the Gyarados matches up into the rest of the team, however, it's okay, I guess. Gengar can easily be EV'd to always survive +1 HP flying from Gyarados. Yeah, it can have random HP ghost or something, but under normal circumstances, Gengar can tank a +1 hit, one-hit KO you back with Thunderbolt. It's not incredible there. Gyarados is okay into Fori. I guess if it is specifically taunt Gyarados, then yeah, you prevent spikes, and other than booming on you, Fori can't really do much back, so there's that. But then you've got like the Regice and the T-Tower. Regice is going to be able to tank anything Gyarados throws at it and come back with a T-Bolt, which it doesn't want. And then same thing, the T-Tower, depending on how you build it, can survive a +1 Earthquake and then come back with Rock Slide or Thunderbolt or what have you. I don't know how good the Gyarados is going to be in the matchup, so first questionable pick, maybe a little bit of a misstep for Mongoose. I mean, there's 3 pokes on the other side that can all learn Thunderbolt, which is not really where you want to be with Gyarados. I mean, I don't know that Joe Fish has like a dedicated Gyara counter right now, so like maybe it will be good. I mean, honestly, if 1 or 2 things are low and you Dragon Dance up, it can just sweep, so I don't hate the Gyarados either. That one's going to be TBD, but I certainly wouldn't mind seeing Joe Fish a little bit down the road take a precautionary measure or two and pad himself a little further against the Gyra just to be safe. And then the Dusclops here is just a direct response to the Claydol. You're going to try to spin? Okay, try to spin through my big fat blob of Clops. Simple as that. And Lou, like I said, I already thought, but certainly even more so now, clearly views his role in this matchup as more on the defensive, reactive, stally end, whereas Blues is going to be the aggressor. So there you go. Dusclops very well may carry Shadow Ball in this matchup to be a threat to the Jinx as well. And generally speaking, like I said, the purpose is to block the doll from spinning. And Lou believes that he can reliably put and keep spikes down, which, yeah, you know what? As of this moment, I'm inclined to think that he probably can. Switching over here to Wraxius with the wheel pick, and then we work our way back left. Her double pick is going to be interesting. Alakazam and Heracross. Wraxius has been perhaps the easiest player in this to comment on because she's picked a plan and picked a style from the get-go and just has not deviated. Doesn't give a fuck about rock resists, doesn't give a fuck about special walls, doesn't give a fuck about anything sturdy or techy. It seems like at every turn she is just picking the fastest and most aggressive thing that she can find. So here we go again. Alakazam, lightning fast, turbo aggro, very little defensive utility. Here it is with the right coverage. So again, let's just make up a set against this team. CM, Ice Punch, Fire Punch, HP Grass covers damn near everything over here. And we very well may see something to that effect, which Lou does not at the moment have an incredible answer for, but at the same time, it's not the easiest thing in the world to switch Alakazam in the first place. I can't imagine how much damage it takes from just like a simple Earthquake from Flygon, for example. So we'll see. It's a battle of opposites here. It's a battle of balls to the walls versus fat. Strategy versus anti-strategy, and we'll see who comes out on top. Heracross reasonable in this matchup, outspeeds the whole team other than Zapdos. Zapdos may have just switched over to Drill Peck, but it also might have T-Wave now. Starmie, if it were fat and bulky, it might want to run a little bit more speed now for the Heracross. We may now be looking at a Starmie that outspeeds Heracross and carries Psychic, for example, as a precautionary measure against that Pokemon. A reversal set is potentially scary here. There are two reversal resistances in the Zapdos and the Starmie. Zapdos probably the overall best bet because Starmie obviously gets blown to smithereens from Megahorn, whereas Zapdos resists that as well and is not one-hit KO'd by Rock Slide. But yeah, this is the most polarized matchup for sure. Turbo aggro against lots of fat, lots of defense. We'll talk about that one at the end, but like I said, they have taken very different approaches, and Wraxius, from the word go, has put her foot on the gas pedal and really hasn't taken it off. So Lou, a large Mongoose, and DJ ArcticPirate here, they are going to take... What are they going to take here? They're going to go with Crobat, Sceptile, and Medicham. Okay. Alright, let's see. The Crobat, huh? I don't know if I understand that pick. I don't know what it necessarily... Is Crobat good into Jinx, Moltres, Raikou? I don't get it. I mean, maybe as an offensive threat, which is not what I thought his team was, but maybe he, as an offensive threat, he views it as something that Blues doesn't switch into well. Like, for example, there's nothing that resists, say, CB Stab Sludge Bomb, for example, I guess. I don't know about that pick. I understood everything until now, but I'm not clear on what the Crobat is supposed to do here. I guess it's a Choice Bander? That one's a bit of a mystery to me. I'm not clear on what the Crobat does in this matchup. That is not what I would have taken or what I would have expected him to take in this situation, but there you go. We've got a Crobat. So Sceptile now into the B matchup. Yeah, sure. I mean, if you give it HP Fire, it's the same shit. It pressures the T-Tower, the Forian, to a lesser extent the Regice. It's not fantastic into Gar, but like, I don't know, random Thunder Punch it or something. You could do more than nothing to it, but it's not great. And then Dugtrio, it's awkward. You force each other to kind of stay honest and actually have speed, or you risk being outsped by the other. Generally, Sceptile has the advantage there. Sceptile is not one-hit KO'd easily by Dugtrio, whereas Dugtrio gets knocked into next week by the Leaf Blade. So while this pick doesn't like leave my jaw on the floor, it makes plenty of sense, and I'm okay with it. This pick is weird. Metacham for DJ ArcticPirate. Against this? When are you ever going to have an opportunity? You'll be outsped and toasted by the Arrow. You'll be intimidated, outsped, and toasted by the Mence. Outsped by the Jolteon. Outsped by the Zam. I mean, granted, you can like Shadow Ball it back after you take a very, very hefty Psychic. You can't one-hit KO the Heracross unless you have like random HP flying or something, but it can do pretty big damage back to you. You're good against the Glalie, obviously, but I don't know. Metacham, huh? That might be a pump fake. That might be trying to mess with Wraxius' draft because it's a scary, hard-hitting mom, but I don't know at all about that. I have a hard time viewing the Metacham as something that's going to have a lot of opportunities to do damage against Wraxius' draft. It seems too slow and too fragile against such a fast, such a turbo aggro team. There's 4 Mons on the other side that are all faster than the Metacham, and many of them deal super effective damage to it. I don't know. Skeptical. I mean, we'll see what else ArcticPirate takes, but I don't know that the Metacham is going to get played, and I don't know that this Crobat is going to get played either. Maybe they are, but it makes me wonder if there wasn't a better pick available for both of them in this situation. And then Blues and Joe are going to wrap us up in this round by picking in harmony. They're going to take Slow King and Slow Bro, respectively. Starting with Blues. Slow King, huh? It might be as simple as feeling like he needs a bulky water and liking this one the best, but you want Slow King over Vaporeon here? Maybe. I mean, with the Psychic typing, it does actually resist the Hariyama, whereas something like Vaporeon would not, and something like Lapras, while it has obvious appeal against the Celebi and the Dragonite, has the fighting weakness against the Hariyama that he might be paranoid about. I've never been the biggest Slow King guy myself. I wonder if Vaporeon would have been better here. Not only as, in my opinion, just an overall better mom, but it can also sub-pass, which is really dangerous with things like the Raikou, the Moltres, the Jinx in the back. So that would be appealing to me. But sees it differently, and that, like I said, that might be influenced potentially by the Hariyama. Might view the fighting resistance as very relevant here, though he does have a couple other fighting resists already in the Moltres, the Jinx, and the Doll. So I don't know. I don't know that Slow King would have been my personal pick here, but that's what he took. Slowbro on the other end in the B matchup. I like that pick quite a bit. Pretty versatile. I mean, again, I could just make up a set, give it like Focus Punch, Flamethrower, Thunder or something, and it just hits a ton of this stuff. It resists both sides of Blaziken, so I think that is really valuable. I think that it resists both the fire and the fighting parts of Blaziken is really important. You could tech it out with various moves, Ice Beam, Flamethrower, Focus Punch, whatever. You can also T-Wave some of this stuff. The Slowbro makes plenty of sense to me in this matchup, though I do think switching into electric attacks, which Mongoose is not currently taking advantage of, but I do think this team is a little bit shaky against electric, but that doesn't seem to be an issue given what's on the other side, so perhaps you can get away with it. Jolteon, Raikou, Zapdos are no longer available. I don't know what electric you would pick at this point to take advantage of that weakness, so perhaps given the circumstances, you can get away with it. Alrighty, we are going into our final round of picks, moving again over to a large Mongoose and working our way left and then back right, and we will be done, and we will talk about who I thought won this draft, which I'm still not sure because I'm talking as I go and haven't had the time to sit and really analyze critically. But let's kick it off with a Donphan and a Wheezing, respectively. Okay, so starting with the Donphan into the B matchup. I like it. It is a spinner that he definitely needs against the Fori team. It's something that isn't eaten by Dugtrio, and it's something that gives you a little bit of padding in case the tower decides to just go DD, just go aggro. I think the Donphan is a nice little insurance pick. It's not perfect. It's not good against Slowbro or against Gengar. It doesn't really hurt Fortress, though the Earthquakes add up after a while. Obviously, it doesn't take Regice Ice Beams well at all, so it's not perfect, but I think it definitely has a place in the matchup, and I think Mongoose, one of the things he's been missing this whole time, since the Fori has been there forever, is a spinner. So there you go. Donphan is the spinner that probably makes the most sense, given the Cheetar and the Fori on the other side. Wheezing into this matchup. I like that. I like it better than the Medicham. Got to give yourself some padding against the Heracross, and generally, anything with physical bulk, anything that could have Haze, anything that can have Will-O-Wisp, gonna be good against Aerodactyl, Salamence, and the like. Obviously, Wheezing is lunch for the Alakazam, but I still think this is a necessary pick, better than the Medicham would be in this matchup against Wraxius. So now we have the triple pick for Wraxius, Joe, and Blues, and they go like this. Charizard, Breloom, and Missy Elliott. Sure. Okay, so Charizard. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I was thinking that Blues takes Charizard or Moltres into this matchup, but hell, why take just one when you can have both? So that's going to make the team building awkward because even though they are the same type, they function pretty differently, and they're coming at you with pretty different threats and different move pools. One of them's got Wow, one of them has Focus Punch. They kind of don't do the same thing. Moltres is never going to be a belly drum threat. Roarzard, it may or may not learn that, but it doesn't exist, whereas Moltres may try to jerk you around with that. Moltres has Morning Sun, Charizard doesn't have Recovery. It's interesting. It's gonna complicate the builder, and we'll see how Lou responds to that. But I don't think it's wild that Blues ends up bringing both. I mean, Lou Rinaldi does not have a bulky water, and maybe he needs to pick up Vaporeon or something here pretty desperately now. There are 3 water weaknesses in the Zard, the Molt, and the Claydol, so water seems desperately needed for Lou at this point. But yeah, I mean, as it stands, I think Blues may very well end up playing both of those. I wonder if the Claydol is a red herring. I wonder if he just goes turbo aggro, benches the Doll, benches the Slowking, takes some other aggressive Mon with his last pick, and just completely plays the aggro in the matchup. Interesting. Can't wait to discuss that one. So, Joe Fish picking up Breloom. I could take or leave it. Gonna build it to outspeed the Milo, the Donphan, the Blissey, the Metagross. So Spore is always a good move. On this particular team, doesn't have a lot of good ways to cheese it in. There's no baton pass support, or there's not really para spam on this team. It can, I guess. You can go T-Wave on Cheetar, Regice, Slowbro, something to that effect, and then just have a Swords Dance Loom or a sub-attacking Loom that doesn't have Spore. There should be some opportunities to Spore. There is a potential Bell user on the other side that makes it a little bit worse. I think a number of the things for Mongoose hit the Breloom pretty hard. I don't know. It may or may not get played. The threat of Spore is always very real, but I would lean towards the Breloom is not that great in the matchup and probably won't end up getting played, but it's definitely still going to be a builder consideration. As far as the Mystery Bus into this A matchup, I don't understand the pick. I don't know what this changes. The normal immunity is whatever. The random really bad Calm Mind threat, there's no way you're picking it for that. If you want a Calm Minder, there's other options still available. Entei or something. It's not a spikes focus matchup, so the levitate doesn't matter. I guess you're taking a levitator against Swampert and Flygon that are 2 stab earthquake users. I guess. I'm skeptical that the Missy gets played. I don't think it overly changes this matchup in a super meaningful way, but I guess we'll find out. So Lou is going to have the double pick here, and it's going to be the end of the draft for him. He's going to wrap us up with Lantern and Armaldo. The Lantern is quite interesting. I think that honestly might end up making the team. The Lantern is probably pretty damn close to where he wants to be against both the Moltres and the Zard. That's probably exactly what he needed. And then the Armaldo is interesting as well because he's now adding a rock threat into the Moltres and the Zard. So he's really taking those seriously. He's going to not only pick Armaldo into Lax, which is a traditional counter, but he's adding a stab rock user into Moltres and Charizard, which is scary. And then the bug part of its coverage also is super effective against the Jinx and the Claydol. So I think these are 2 really good late additions here for Lou, the Lantern and the Armaldo. And I would not be surprised if one or the other made the team. I think he has to play the Lantern. I don't know what gets cut in the interim, but Crobat I don't think will make the team. Among the other 7, I don't know who gets the boot, but I think he absolutely must play the Lantern. I think it's okay, not great against Raikou, but it's gut game against Doll, and it's super duper might save his ass against Moltres and against Charizard, and I think he needs to get his ass saved against Moltres and against Charizard, because they are scary as it sits. And for the same reason, he might be obligated to play the stupid Armaldo. We'll see. I would not be surprised if he ended up going Thick Fat Hariyama and Lantern and Armaldo, and then had one of the Celebi or the Dragonite be Heal Bell to both have your cake and eat it too. To have your Thick Fat, but also not get hosed by random Will-O-Wisp, random Toxic when you don't have Guts. Going on the other side, triple pick for Wraxius, Joe Fish, and Blues. They will finish off their respective drafts like so. Quagsire, Venusaur, and Altaria. Okay, well, Quagsire, a little late, but many rock weaknesses on this team. Finally, at the very end, adding a rock resist. Will it get played? Does it matter? Is it enough? I don't know. I don't think Quagsire is that good, but the ship has very much sailed at this point. All the premier rock resists are gone. If you want to have a rock resist for the sake of having a damn rock resist, there you go. You've got a Quagsire if you respect that Flygon on the other side. If you respect the possibility of Medicham and Swampert having rock attacks on the other side. But I really don't know that Quagsire is a pick into either of those things. Maybe it gives you a little something against Flygon, but honestly, maybe some of the things that can have it should just load up on ice attacks. I don't know that the Quagsire changes all that much. Venusaur is weird to me with a guy who just picked Breloom. I guess it gives him another option for the team. I guess you can just go 4E spikes with like double grass spam. There is a spinner on the other side, so like the spikes are not permanently there, but I guess there's a world where it's like 4E, Gengar to block spin, both grasses, and then you cut some of this other stuff. Like maybe you don't even bring the Regice, honestly. Like maybe it's just like 4E Gartar, Breloom Venusaur, and then pick your poison, Slowbro or Dugtrio, whoever you like better. Again, it complicates the builder. Another Leech Seed user, another Sleep user. It feels redundant with Breloom. I feel like, if anything, Joe will bring one or the other, but not both. So I don't know that I love the Venusaur pick. Maybe there was a more diverse threat that makes the builder a little more complicated. But basically, if you're building against Loom, you're also building against Venusaur. It's kind of redundant. Don't think I love the pick. Nevertheless, that's the pick that was made. Moving on. Altaria for Blues Energy. Yeah, hey, it has Rest Natural Cure, one of the only things that can remotely pull that off. So if he feels that Loose Team is too passive and that the Altaria can just sit in there and terrorize him, I guess that's that. With Altaria being a very, very stall-based Pokemon, I think it would be much, much, much better with Spikes. It does learn things like Roar and Perish Song, so you can have weird sets like that have moves like that, plus Rest and Natural Cure, and you could stall things out for days. I do think Altaria has niche use and is underappreciated by the community. I do think it should get picked a little bit more often in these things, but that being said, I don't know if this is the matchup for it, especially when Blues doesn't have Spikes. I think Altaria will end up being overly do-nothing, and I don't think it will get played. Final 2 picks of the draft. Before we get into the analysis part, Kingdra, and not OP, though it is OP, but PO, to get us to Porygon 2. Okay, Kingdra into the A matchup. I dig it. I think that Wraxius has cheated the whole time on anything remotely defensive or anything remotely sturdy. I think switching into anything hard-hitting is going to be difficult. I think the second the Kingdra gets a Rain Dance off, life is challenging. I think Aerodactyl gets nuked and outsped by a Rain Dance boosted Surf. I think Salamence gets knocked into next week by Ice Beam. Jolteon may or may not survive Surf, probably gets nuked by Hydro Pump, but even if you survive Surf, you can't kill it back. Glalie and Alakazam can probably survive, but it's the same. I mean, Alakazam might die to the rain-boosted Hydro Pump, but same bullshit. I mean, other than Glalie booming on it, I guess, what are you doing back? Heracross, I guess, you could try to set up like an Endure Salic Berry set, but same thing, not exactly what you want switching in to a special threat. Mischievous, same thing. Quagsire, I mean, if the Kingdra's really, truly worried about it, could just carry HP Grass, but yeah, I think the Kingdra is a nice little pickup that should probably get played in this matchup, and I don't think Wraxius really has all that good of a damn response to it. I think the Kingdra is going to end up taking some lives and assembling its pyramid of skulls, which is an ADV pun for those of you who are old enough. And then finally, a large Mongoose, Porygon 2, into the B matchup. Yeah, I think it's as simple as Porygon 2 into Doug. I don't see any other purpose. It's not good against Venusaur or Loom or Regice or Tar or Gar. Yeah, it doesn't. I don't see it doing much of anything. I like Porygon 2 against Jolteon. I like it against Flygon. I like it against physical offenses, things like Meta, things like Salamence. I like it in those kind of matchups, but I don't see it doing a lot in this B matchup. It is basically only the Doug Trio. Maybe it'll make Joe think twice about bringing the Doug Trio, but I don't think the P2 will ultimately get played, and I don't think it ultimately changes anything. And that is our draft. So the fun part, as always, is let's check out the matchups. Who do we think won? Let's start in the A matchup, the most polarizing matchup. This balls-to-the-walls aggro team against pretty slow, pretty fat, pretty reactive team. Added a little bit of punch, Medicham and Kingdra towards the end, but very much offense versus defense, strategy versus anti-strategy. I feel that I like ArcticPirate's position better in this matchup. I think that he's got the tools in many Thunder Wave users, which Wraxius does not have a great switch for. I think that there's a lot of Bolt Beam coverage in various ways over here to hit the things super effectively that need to be. I think that Pirate has the bulk to withstand most of the attacks over here. I think the spikes are not that exciting in the matchup with a number of Levitators and a Rapid Spinner. I don't even know if I would bring the Glalie if I were Wraxius, even though in theory she's a Spikes aggro team, and I think the Kingdra is a real threat, and I think the rock resistance thing, even though there aren't too many rock users, I think switching into like Medicham or Flygon or whatever could potentially be difficult. Anytime a team is really aggressive, you can just get there. Wraxius could just get crits, could just have the perfect sets at the right time, could just get Thunderbolt, added effect Paris, or what have you. Could just get Rock Slide flinches. So you can never count out a team when it's this aggressive and can just BS the other guy out. But ultimately, I'm going to say that I like Pirate's side of this matchup and will predict Pirate to win. Switching over to the B matchup here, Joe Fish and a large Mongoose. This one has been back and forth, but for most of this, I think I've liked Mongoose's end a little bit better. The Regice pick was weird to me the whole time, and that never really changed for me. I did like the Dugtrio pick in this situation, though I think after that happened, Mongoose adjusted accordingly, and then by taking Gyarados, Sceptile, Donphan, Porygon 2, not a single one of those is worried about the Dugtrio. So the Dugtrio was fine at the time, but is not as good now as it once was, and honestly, might not even get played. I would strongly consider not even bringing the Dugtrio anymore if I'm Joe. The Breloom and the Venusaur feel redundant to me. I don't know that a lot of these bottom-end picks, the Dugtrio, the Slowbro, the Breloom, the Venusaur, I don't know if these are the right picks or the strongest picks for the matchup. And between that and feeling a little bit weird about the Regice to begin with, also feeling like this team really lacks win conditions, maybe a DD-Tar, which I think between Metagross and Donphan and Gyarados, I think Mongoose has the tools to neutralize. For me, this is probably the least close matchup. I'm going to give the edge here to a large Mongoose. I'm having a hard time seeing how Joe Fish is going to win this matchup. I think the better team, the better matchup, and the more actual ways to win are all on the side of Mongoose. I'm just not a believer in Joe's team, and I'm always open in life to being wrong. There's a first time for everything. But my prediction here is going to be a large Mongoose with the victory here. And then over to the C matchup, Blues against Lou Rinaldi. Back and forth on this one. I still don't understand the Crobat pick at all. It seems terribad to me. I don't know what that's going to do in the matchup. I do think that the Lantern and the Armaldo were both exactly what he needed. And the fact that he desperately needed things like that, to me, means that in my mind I was viewing him as probably behind in the matchup. But this one is the most interesting. This one is the most back and forth and close, and I could see it going either way. Picks like Claydol made total sense at the time. Dusclops as a counter to the Claydol made total sense at the time. Back and forth. Hard to say who got the better end in this one. Ultimately, I think the Charizard and the Moltres are still going to be difficult. I think the Lantern helps, but I don't know if it's enough. It's very possible that the Moltres and the Charizard will both just have HP Grass and really be trying to snipe the Lantern. I don't think the Altaria is going to get played. I don't think it's going to be a factor. But generally, I think that threats are better than answers, and while there is a world where Lou can stall him up, he's going to play the whole damn game on the back foot, needing to avoid crits, needing to avoid BS, needing to avoid the numerous ways that Blue's team can utilize Substitute, the fact that he can start double CMing up with Jinx and with Raikou, the fact that Zard could just have Belly Drum or some random physical set, the fact that Lax can be a setup mon, the fact that he cannot even bring the Lax and make the Skarmory not that good into special spam, Raikou, Moltres, Jinx, Charizard. I don't know. I'm going to give the edge to Blues here. I think Lou doesn't have enough win conditions, and I think that Blues has enough pressure and enough diverse pressure to punch through the defenses for Lou. I like the Lantern pick. I like the Armaldo pick. I think they help, but I don't know if they're enough. And again, how is Lou winning the games? Dragonite ? Or is that where the Crobat comes in? Gonna give the advantage to Lou. To Blues. So, with that analysis out of the way, I guess my final prediction is 2-1 Orange team with ArcticPirate and Mongoose winning, but with Blues defeating Lou Rinaldi. 2-1 team on the right with the victory is my prediction. But as always, I'd like to hear your prediction. this video, I'm going to wrap it up here. It ran a little bit longer than I was anticipating. I got to feed some cats, take a shower, go to work, all that good stuff. But I appreciate you guys watching. There will be more CALLOUS Draft League content on the way. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for the time. I will see you guys in the next video.